Betty Cooper was a child who lived through World War II in Australia. She lives in Pennsylvania now, but her hometown was Perth, Australia. There was not much actual fighting in Australia, but there was still a war going on around the world. As a young kid, her father was deployed to Rottnest, one of Australia's many islands. Her dad was deployed to Rottnest for the whole war, which was practically her whole childhood.
Even though my father went to war, he didn't go. Well, I think he would have. He would have gone to war, but he convalesced. I think he did go to war. He must have gone to war, my father, and he came out. Or did he Rottnest? I can't remember that part of it. I can't part, but he was taken. We didn't see my father until 1945, when the war was over. So he came back safe.
She was 2 when the war started and 7 when it ended. Betty remembers planes flying overhead in her town and being frightened. She knew those planes carried bombs and was scared they would drop on her. Just in case if the bombs were ever dropped, Betty and her family had to go in underground shelters. Anytime the alarm went off, she would have to go to the shelter, even if it was nighttime.
Or just like
Anybody.
yeah. Being a kid in a war can be confusing. Did you know what was going on? Did your parents tell you anything? What was your daily life like?
Frightening, because we were always afraid of the sirens. We never knew which time they were going over, you know. It was very frightening, but because we were protected.
Down under?
Yeah, there was dug underneath. And it was my dad must have dug it, or somebody, I don't know who dug it. It was like a underground shelter. Mm-hmm. So it would be awful to go underneath there. No lights, no nothing.
Hitler never really went into Australia, but the Japanese did. In February of 1942, the Japanese bombed Australia in Darwin.
At the time of the first raid, which was about 3 minutes to 10, the first one on the 19th, I remember it was a Thursday, and we'd already dug slit trenches and sandbags, but about 3 minutes to 10, that wave of about 138 Zeros come over, and then the next thing they just pounded us, and the first 500-pound drop was on the outskirts of Larrakia Barracks ground, which is only about 500 yards from us, and I took a photo of 3 of our fellas in the first big hole that was left there, you know. So that was the first one, and in between that, was a silly 19-year-old, I was about the only one that had a camera. I started walking down towards the wharf above the top, and I took photographs where they bombed the middle of the wharf, Stokes' Wharf, and then I gradually come back, not knowing that they were going to hit us again at 3 minutes to 12 the same day, same morning, you know, and so I was a bit lucky, actually. Well, we just scrambled around. There wasn't much that we could do because we had no equipment, nothing to, only our old 303s, and they weren't much damn good. Each raid got smaller and smaller, of course, after the first 2 big ones on the first morning. Then one of those raids, of course.
After that, her father decided to join the war. After the bombing in Darwin, Australia, Australia's territory was not really involved in the war. During World War II, America, along with other countries, entered a stage with lack of necessities because all the money was going to the war. Luckily, Australia was never really in it. Betty says that Australia used rations, meaning that all of Australia's food was rationed out to its people.
I remember, and I used to, by this time, 1945, I must have been about 7 years old. And I remember the stamps. We had ration food, stamp book. And we used to go to the local store, the grocery store, and every day we got a ration. We were rationed on food. No, I never served. We never starved. We helped each other. The neighbours, we got together and what we didn't have, because we all had stamps. We had ration stamps. They were called stamp books. And we were entitled, if it was how many children you had, that's how many. At my time, I was the only one. We had 5 children, so we were allowed.
Did you pay for anything, or did they just...
No, we didn't pay for anything. They were just rationed out to all the people. But we got closer to our neighbours. With the war, we got closer. You know, with the neighbours, we were very close. Yeah.
Let's go. Not good with the war, but good about.
Well, because of the war, we were sort of watched out for each other. Neighbours, if we had a little bit over ration, we'd give it to someone else and help them out.
How much food you got depended on how many people were in your family. And Betty had many family members, so she always had plenty of food. Australia was a safe place for even the Jews. They never had to worry if Hitler would come and capture them. Betty even lived near a synagogue that was never destroyed or even come close to being destroyed.
I lived near the synagogue. When I was growing up, I lived near a synagogue. Got very close to very nice people. And nobody ever, in our part of the world, nobody went to concentration camps. I never heard of them until I came to America, believe it or not. Yeah.
So, knowing that Jewish people were scared that Hitler would take them away?
No. We didn't, I don't know. When I grew up with Jewish girls and their grandparents and their parents.
Did they ever have to wear a yellow star defining them as Jewish, or no?
No.
Because that's what they had to do in Europe. They had to wear a yellow star, and it was in Germany to identify if you were a Jew or not.
Really? And if you were, what happened?
Betty was a child who went through a war. She says she was too young for it to really make an impact on her. She says the biggest thing to have changed was that the government gave her family a market. Betty says that the market is a very special place for her. Her father, my great-grandfather, also got a plaque in Australia to honor him for fighting in the war. Overall, being in Perth, Australia was a pretty chill and safe place during World War II.